Chapter 9, Commands set for reusing objects and getting organized. Our learning objectives are to creating and using blocks, using Design Center to bring blocks in from other drawings. We're not going to use external references. I'll touch on them in the lecture. We'll work on creating and using layers, properties, setting colors, line types, and line weights. And so what a block is it's basically a template. And so it allows us to create things like telephones and furniture and things like that that we can use throughout the drawing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a block for a telephone, and then we're going to go through and analyze it. And so we'll go to the D2L, and I have this telephone located here, which I've downloaded from the publisher website. I can select download, and then I can open the file. And so here is my telephone. And then what we can do is we can go through and go to the Insert tab, create a block. So we'll say create block, we'll name it telephone. We'll give it a base point. And I typically put them on the part itself. We'll select the object, hit enter. We'll select convert to block, and then you can give a description for it. And we can say OK. And essentially what that allows us to do then is to insert these telephones within the drawing. And if I had a different layer set up for this, and let's just say that it was purple with a phantom line type, and we'll throw a 0.3 millimeter line weight on that, make that current. When I insert that block of the telephone, it now comes in with the layer properties. And if I list that, it tells me that it's a telephone block, and it gives me the coordinate location for that information. Alrighty. So a lot of the textbook just goes through and talks about what I just did there in about 2 minutes. Being able to go through, insert a telephone, create a block out of it, list it, and then it touches on being able to use Design Center. And so what Design Center is it's a content manager, and it's an excellent content manager. I'm just going to touch on lightly on some of the information in this chapter, and we can build on that as we work on the hotel suite plan. And so what Design Center will allow us to do is it'll allow us to manage the content for the blocks, like the furniture and things like that. And it'll also allow us to work with other content like dimension styles, layers, text styles, etc. Anything with a name you can basically manage. And so what we can do is we can go through and download some of the content for the Design Center and just take a quick look at that. And so we can download the content, and then we can look at the blocks. Within our hotel room drawing. And so, for example, we can put some of the bathroom fixtures in like this. And we don't need to go through and X-reference everything in and create all that information as far as that goes. But if we were to go back to our drawing here, and here's our hotel floor plan, and we're going to do this in model space. I'm going to go to the Home tab, and then here's my Design Center. And what I've done is I've downloaded and linked it to the hotel suite blocks. And so in D2L, you can download the hotel suite blocks. And then what you'll want to do is to look at that folder location for that. I'm going to copy it. And then what I did was I put that into my hard drive location for the course in CAD 134. And so here's my CAD 134 blocks. And actually, I'm just going to make it my hotel suite blocks, and then I'll paste that in there. Once I have that, I can come back here to my AutoCAD, and what I can do then is to go through in Design Center, and I can navigate to that. And so I'm going to go to my hard drive location, CAD 134. Here's my hotel suite blocks and the drawings for those hotel suite blocks. And like I said, it's a content manager. And so I can go to blocks. And so here are the blocks that I can go through and manage. And for example, if we wanted to put in a sink and a faucet within the bathroom, we can come back here to our drawing. And what they do in the textbook is they actually put everything in and then they assign it to different layers. And so I guess I'll just continue it in that same way. And so as we look at the way this is set up, I can come over here to this bathroom sink and I can drag it into the drawing. And then I can grab the bathtub and the toilet. And as they go through, in chapter 10, this is sort of just reference. You don't actually have to do it. I'm just going to demonstrate it. What they'll do is show us the precise locations for that. And so I can come over here. This is a block. I can grab it. I can bring it into the room right here. And then they put a wall here. I'm just going to track it down 3 feet. And it looks like it's probably more like something like about here. I'm just going to eyeball it for right now. And we'll trim that. And then I can center that, at least right now by eye. And so we're using Design Center to be able to manage content. And that's essentially what we're doing here. I can go and grab the bathtub and the toilet, and we can put those in. Typically, I'll put them over on the side, and then I'll rotate them into the correct orientation. We're going to have the faucet over here on the left side and the rounded corners of the tub on the right side. So we use the rotate command. And then we'll use the move command. And then we can put in the toilet. And we can move that in place. I realize that it does say that there's a wall that's located right over here, and we'll add that in the next chapter. But that's just a quick rundown on how to use the Design Center as we go through and we work with chapter 9. And as I said, we're not going to go through and create an external reference. When we talk about layers, what layers will allow us to do is to be able to separate these different drawing entities onto different layers. Layer 0 is a permanent layer. You cannot delete it. It's the default layer. We can go through and turn the layers on by selecting a light bulb or turning them off, or we can freeze and thaw, which is pretty much the same thing, and we can lock and unlock those layers. We can assign colors to those different layers, and we can assign line types. And so by default we have continuous line types, but if we go through and we select load, we can load these different line types for things like hidden and phantom lines. And so we can go through and we can create a hidden line layer and select a hidden line type, and then we can create a structure like this. And then what they do is they go through and start to tweak the LT scale. And so as we take a look at this, we can go back to our AutoCAD drawing, and we can go into our layer properties, and we can make a new layer, and we can name it hidden. I'm not sure what the color is for that. I may have to come back and correct it, but I'm just going to go and choose a green. And then I'm going to select the layer type. I'll say load. I'll select hidden. I'll say OK. And then I'll click on it again to assign it to that layer. And then typically hidden line layers are 0.3 millimeters. And I can make that current. And I think what they did was they drew, like on layer 0, I'll make that current as an example. And they drew just like a structure. Like this. And then they came in on the hidden line layer and drew hidden lines. And I'm just going to say nearest. Nearest. And what you'll notice is that the line type is really very fine. And so what they do is they can set the LT scale to a factor of 10. And then you can see it's much more easy to read. And then what the textbook does is they talk about being able to click on that line type and go to the properties. And then we can go and change the LT scale on that. And you can then override those. Let's just go back to 1. All right. So just some examples of working with layers and line types and line type scales. Being able to change objects from one layer to another, and modify some of the properties like line weights. And so as we work with different line types and line weights, when we use the line weight icon, we can actually go through and see that. And so if we were to look at this and I was to put on the line weights, you can see that we can then see our line weights generated on the computer screen. Alrighty, that ends this video tutorial for Chapter 9.